With the Elimination Chamber fully behind us, we are now on the road to WrestleMania 41. And at the forefront on the Raw side of things is for the World Heavyweight Championship, with Gunther defending the championship against the Royal Rumble winner, Jey Uso. And while I am very excited about the prospect of Jey Uso winning a world championship at the show of shows, I do think there are better ways WWE could be maximizing their time with this feud, really diving into some more storyline to be able to let this one grow and develop going into WrestleMania. And that's the whole point of this video today. We are going to talk about how WWE should book Gunther versus Jey Uso at WrestleMania 41. And if you like wrestling content just like this, go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below, like this video, and leave a comment. Anything that you can do to support us would really, really help. We would appreciate it so much. We create videos just like this right here on YouTube. We also have a podcast that drops in both video and audio formats on YouTube and all podcast platforms. And we have short form content over on TikTok. So go ahead and follow us anywhere that you might find us. All right, it's been long enough. Without further ado, let's get into it. Let's lay down some prerequisites, a little bit of context, a little bit of revisionist history, if you will. So looking back to Saturday night's main event back in January, in the real world, we had Gunther defend the World Heavyweight Championship against Jey Uso. And Gunther beat Jey Uso pretty handily at that show. And in my opinion, with the benefit of hindsight, the fact that they had this feud happen and then Jey win the Rumble just like 2 weeks later or a week later was kind of stupid. It also kind of started off this feud going into WrestleMania on the wrong foot for me. The way that WWE has treated Saturday night's main event as of late has kind of been like it's almost like a non-canon event. It's kind of just this event that happens within a vacuum. It takes the context of what's happening, but it never really takes the fallout of that and really like channels it into the storylines that follow after Saturday night's main event. So instead of this, I think I have a really good idea for what we could have done at Saturday night's main event. Instead of Jey Uso challenging Gunther, the man that Gunther defends the World Heavyweight Championship against at Saturday night's main event is none other than the guy who was challenging him, calling him out all throughout the fall, CM Punk. It never really sat right with me that throughout the entire fall, through this feud with Drew McIntyre and then the feud with Seth Rollins, CM Punk never did end up getting his shot at the world title after both of those guys were kind of standing in his way in the lead up to it. And then at the Raw Netflix debut, when CM Punk beat Seth Rollins in the main event of that night, it kind of told me that he should have been the next guy to challenge Gunther. But it seemed to me that WWE would have rather prioritized stacking the Royal Rumble really, really well, and they did that, and it was fantastic. I just think that Punk should have got that shot at some point. I personally think there was no better place for him to get this shot than Saturday night's main event. Jey Uso was cool in the moment, but now knowing this all happened, I really wish they didn't do Jey versus Gunther just to run it back with a longer feud going into WrestleMania. And in that match with Gunther, it is a back and forth match. It is a really, really solid match. It gets over the in-ring prowess of CM Punk and Gunther, and the match ends with Punk losing to Gunther in a heavily back and forth match. It's a match that makes Gunther look like a killer, a monster, but it also makes CM Punk look just as strong in defeat. And so now we're really getting into things here. We're at the Royal Rumble 2025, live from Indianapolis, Indiana on February 1st. And I'm not gonna lie, I think that the Royal Rumble was perfect for this feud. I'm keeping it as is. I think everything that happens in the Royal Rumble was great. Even the accidental elimination of Sami Zayn by Jey Uso was a perfect moment to keep in there. And Jey Uso and John Cena being the final two, with Jey outsmarting John Cena, was the perfect ending in my opinion. Plus then you have that moment where Cena comes in the ring, raises Jey's arm, and it's really a big endorsement of Jey Uso as a big babyface in the future. Now this brings us to the Raw after the Royal Rumble. It was live from Cleveland, Ohio on February 3rd, 2025. And this is gonna play out in my fantasy booking the exact same way it did in real life. And I promise we're gonna do some different things in a bit, but I just thought this night for the feud of Jey Uso and Gunther was just perfect for how it kicked off. You know, Jey comes out to open the show, the crowd is cheering his name. The crowd is cheering over his attempts to even start talking. They're yeeting. They're saying you deserve it. Jey's crying. All of the emotions are felt in this promo from Jey Uso. And Gunther comes out and basically says, you know, despite the last month or two of me seeming a little bit questionable in my integrity and in my strength and confidence as a performer, I am always in control. And Jey, I refuse to do this with you again because I'm in the process of building my legacy. And facing you again at WrestleMania does nothing for it. You know, facing someone like a John Cena, a CM Punk, a Roman Reigns, a Drew McIntyre, that's going to do something for my legacy. But facing you, isn't going to do anything. So if you choose me as your WrestleMania opponent, every week up until WrestleMania is going to be hell. And WrestleMania will be the most horrible display of violence that the wrestling business has ever seen. And this is where we get to the real heart of the story here, as Jay says that I'm tired of people telling me who I can and can't be, that I've just been a tag team guy, that I'm not supposed to be in the main event, that I'm not supposed to win the Royal Rumble. I did all that. And regardless of who I choose, I'm walking in as the Royal Rumble winner and walking out as world champion. The next week's edition of Raw is the February 10th edition, live from Nashville, Tennessee. And in the arena interview area, the one that's kind of like high up in the bowl, in the lower bowl facing the Tron, the one that they've been doing recently in the arena with fans, Jackie Redmond is interviewing Jey Uso. Jackie Redmond asked the basic questions of, how it feels to have won the most stacked Royal Rumble match of all time, all that stuff. But then it gets to the heart of the story, where she asks, has Gunther's actions last week influenced your decision of who you're going to choose to be your opponent at WrestleMania 41? Jay says, clearly there's unfinished business between Gunther and I. Jay says that there's clearly unfinished business between Gunther and I. It doesn't matter if it's at WrestleMania 41 or 400. He will prove to Gunther and the world that he can beat him, and more importantly, become a world champion. And at this point, Karrion Kross interrupts. And this is where we really start to differ from the story that's played out in reality. Karrion does his usual stuff. He questions if Jay really thinks he can beat Gunther. And Karrion says the only way that Jay has a shot at winning against Gunther is to tap into that darker side. The side that he had when he was in the Bloodline, working alongside Roman Reigns during the peak of his title reign. And if he doesn't tap into that side, he's gonna get crushed by Gunther. Jay responds by saying, everyone is doubting me, but I've only leveled up since leaving the Bloodline. Singles gold, the Intercontinental Championship, multiple main events, literally winning the Royal Rumble match, the most stacked Royal Rumble match of all time. Jay doesn't have to change a thing about himself. Jay says if Kross and other people think that he can't beat Gunther, then he'll have to fight the guys just like Kross in order to prove those haters wrong. So he challenges Karrion Kross to a match later that night on Raw. And later on in the night, Jey Uso does go on to defeat Karrion Kross pretty handily. Ludwig Kaiser attacks Jey Uso after the match, and it's kind of assumed at this point that Gunther has sicked Ludwig Kaiser onto Jey Uso in order to send a message. Don't challenge me. This is what's coming your way, except it's going to come from me, which is a lot worse than Ludwig Kaiser. Now, this brings us to the February 17th edition of Raw, live from Charlotte, North Carolina. And Jey Uso calls out Gunther and Ludwig Kaiser for coordinating this attack that happened last week after the match with Karrion Kross. But this time, only Ludwig Kaiser responds to this, and Ludwig comes out and says that Gunther believes that Jay and the people of Charlotte, North Carolina are not worth his time to be there in person, so he sent Ludwig Kaiser to address Jay on his own. Ludwig says that calling out Gunther was a huge mistake tonight, as Jay clearly is not ready for the main event picture, for the spotlight. And as you know, this is a huge trigger for Jey Uso. He gets really angry and says, don't talk about these people that way. These people are the only ones that have and continue to believe in main event Jey Uso. And since you want to get involved in my business between me and Gunther, why don't you face me next week on Raw? And Ludwig Kaiser accepts. The match is set. And this brings us to the main event of Monday Night Raw in Cincinnati, Ohio on February 24th, 2025. We have the match that was set up the week prior between Jey Uso and Ludwig Kaiser. It's interweaved throughout the night that Gunther is not in the building tonight. So in the main event, Jey Uso defeats Ludwig Kaiser. He's celebrating in the ring when Gunther comes out and attacks him. After everybody all night was saying Gunther is not in the building, it turned out he was, and he was just planning this all out to get a sneak attack in on Jey Uso. Ludwig Kaiser's holding Jey Uso in the corner, and Gunther's chopping him into oblivion, absolutely destroying him. His chest is bloody, bruised, there's welts, all of that stuff that you would expect from Gunther's hardest chops. Gunther powerbombs him onto the announce table. It doesn't break, by the way. It's very reinforced. He's beating him all around the ringside area. This is really, really bad for Jey Uso. Producers, security, Adam Pearce, all these suits are coming out and trying to separate Gunther from Jey Uso, and there's nothing in Jey Uso. He is just out. And Raw closes as the big baby faces on the show. Your CM Punks, your Sami Zayns. Cody Rhodes is there since he's popping in on Raw occasionally lately. And they're all checking in on Jey Uso, making sure he's okay as the show closes and Gunther is being separated and kind of forced to the back by all these guys in suits. And now we get to the Elimination Chamber Premium Live event. And at this point, you're probably wondering, because Jay hasn't officially challenged Gunther in my fantasy booking yet, is the chamber match still on? And the answer is yes. And the reason I did this is because there's so much time between Royal Rumble and WrestleMania, and it seemed like they kind of rushed Jay making his decision. It would have been a little bit weird if there was a chamber match to be a #1 contender for the champion that the Royal Rumble winner does not pick. pick, but I also think it builds a little bit of suspense, and it would have made the chamber match more interesting because people like Logan Paul, Damian Priest, even Drew McIntyre would have had more of a shot at winning the chamber match and going after Gunther as World Heavyweight Champion. So John Cena still wins the Elimination Chamber and still turns heel on Cody Rhodes, just like what happened in real life. Except obviously Cena doesn't know if he's facing Cody or Gunther yet, and he only turned heel at this point because The Rock still decided to enlist John Cena to turn heel on Cody. Now this brings us to the March 3rd episode of Raw, live from Buffalo, New York. This is the episode that Jey Uso needs to pick his WrestleMania opponent. Is he going to face the WWE Champion Cody Rhodes or the World Heavyweight Champion Gunther? Now earlier in the night, Cody Rhodes enters Jey Uso's locker room area, and he's pleading with Jey, saying, Jey, you need to challenge Gunther for the World Heavyweight Championship. You have unfinished business with Gunther, and I now have unfinished business with John Cena. This is just a way to kind of tell this story of Jey still could potentially pick Cody Rhodes and throw everything off. But I still want to set up Cody versus Cena while having Jey versus Gunther, and just having a little bit of extra suspense of who is Jey going to pick. Main event time on Monday Night Raw. It is time for Jey Uso to make his decision and pick his WrestleMania 41 opponent. And for this, I have it structured very similar to Batista in the Evolution days picking his WrestleMania opponent, or The Undertaker doing the same thing when he picked Batista, where you have all the champions in the ring, the GMs in the ring with contracts with the Raw and SmackDown logos on them. You know, the whole thing. We want to make this into a whole spectacle. So Pierce and Aldis are in the ring. Cody and Gunther make their entrances, but they stay on the stage. And the reason for that is because I wanted to make Gunther and Jey have some kind of separation. It wouldn't make much sense to have them in the same ring and a few feet away from each other and not wanting to kill each other after the last couple of weeks, especially with Gunther damn near killing Jey Uso a week prior. So Jey makes his entrance through the crowd to further make sure that him and Gunther do not cross paths directly at all in this segment. They stay far away from one another. His chest is taped, his shoulders taped, he's bloodied, he's bruised. He's not looking great after the beatdown from Gunther last week. And also, you're probably wondering at this point, where is John Cena? Where is the Elimination Chamber winner? And the answer is, just like in real life, Cena immediately flew out from Chamber to Budapest to film the film Matchbox. Adam Pearce says, Jey, the time has come. It is time to choose who you will be facing at WrestleMania 41 for the respective world title. At this point, Gunther has a microphone from stage. He says, Adam, allow me to make the decision for him. I mean, look at this man standing before you, beaten, bloodied, bruised. He is broken, and it's all at the hands of the ring general. And at this point, Jey cuts him off. Jey's clearly like struggling with his words because of his injuries, and he's saying like, nah, Gunther, that's enough. I am sick and tired of hearing I am not good enough. It's true. I'm not CM Punk. I'm not John Cena. I'm not Roman Reigns. Yet. He says, that's why I'm standing here right now, Gunther. You say I'm not good enough to add something to your legacy by beating me at WrestleMania, but maybe it's not about building your legacy at WrestleMania. It's about building mine. He says, at WrestleMania, I'm going to prove all the doubters wrong. I'm going to take what's mine because, Gunther, I challenge you. At WrestleMania, I'm a dog walk your ass. And I really just wanted to like drive this home that like Jey is pissed off. This is a very serious feud. And it's not just about yeeting and the crowd being with him and rallying around him. This is really serious for Jey. This is make or break for his career. I really want that energy, the weight of this situation to really be felt throughout the story. Jey is facing Gunther at WrestleMania, and Cody Rhodes is now defending his title against the heel John Cena at WrestleMania 41. And this brings us to Monday Night Raw, live from Madison Square Garden on March 10th, 2025. And this episode is going to be the contract signing between Gunther and Jey Uso. We're making this title match official now that Jey has made his decision. And Gunther says, this is your last chance, Jey. There's still time for you to back out of this. Oba Femi's still looking for a challenger for his title, and maybe spending time down there will be good for you, furthering the story that Jey just isn't really ready for this main event spotlight that he so craves. And Jey once again responding, Gunther, you're not going to tell me what I can and can't do anymore. I've been busting my ass week in and week out since winning the Royal Rumble, dealing with your scummy ass jumping me while beating your lackey in the middle of this ring. I've come this close to winning Money in the Bank. I've been Intercontinental Champion, and I've finally won the Royal Rumble. I've finally got my shot. And at WrestleMania, you're going to be looking up at the lights while I'm holding up your title and saying, yeet. And it's at this point that both men sign the contract. And Gunther says, Jey, remember what I said to you as a warning. You have 5 weeks of hell ahead of you, so get ready to be beaten back to the tag division where you belong. And at this point, Gunther and Ludwig Kaiser attack Jey Uso 2-on-1 until music hits. and it's Jimmy Uso. Big Jim comes out and makes the save for Jey Uso. And this sets up a tag team match for the next week on Raw because it's the first Raw of the European tour. They're going to be live from Brussels, Belgium. So it's going to be Gunther and Ludwig Kaiser versus Jimmy and Jey, the Usos. And honestly, I really wanted the Usos and Gunther and Kaiser to be a tag match at the Raw in Madison Square Garden, but I just couldn't work it out with the timing of everything, and it just like would make too much overlap happen. So I decided, let's have the Jimmy Uso save at Madison Square Garden and have this first Raw in the European tour, have this really big match with the Usos teaming up once again to face Gunther and Ludwig Kaiser. So now we're live from Brussels, Belgium on Raw on March 17th, 2025. We're in the main event of Raw. We have Jimmy and Jey against Gunther and Ludwig Kaiser, and I wanted this match to really be built as a big main event match because it's St. Patty's Day in the US. And just to keep in mind, this Raw is going to air at 3 p.m. Eastern time because it's going to be airing at the local time for Brussels, Belgium, 8 p.m. So think about it. We're in the middle of the day on St. Patrick's Day. People are going to be out partying, drinking. It's a Monday, so people might be working as well. So I wanted to have the Usos versus Gunther and Ludwig Kaiser to be the main event to really draw in viewers. It's the first time that the Usos are teaming up in a while. So hopefully this will really pull in viewers for that St. Patty's Day episode. And at the end of the match, Gunther and Ludwig Kaiser pick up the win when Gunther pins Jey. And having him get pinned by Gunther is really when doubt starts to be planted in everyone's mind. And people start to think, ooh, maybe Jey can't beat Gunther. Maybe Gunther is going to retain at WrestleMania. Now this brings us to the March 24th episode of Monday Night Raw from Glasgow, Scotland. And before I get into this one, I just want to preface that this is starting to take in some elements of the real life storytelling we're getting from this feud involving Alpha Academy, but I just want to preface that it's only going to be contained in this week alone. Because that's the biggest issue I'm seeing with the story we're getting on TV. It's Jey Uso and Gunther, but then it's also involving Alpha Academy and A-Town Down Under. And to me, it just doesn't make sense. Those two teams have nothing to do with Gunther or Jey Uso. It just feels very forced. And it just feels kind of stupid, like a waste of our time. If you want to get other people involved, at least have them have some kind of ties to Jey Uso and Gunther as characters. Hence why I brought in Ludwig Kaiser for Gunther and Jimmy Uso for Jey. So Gunther comes out to the ring and he says, since Jey Uso decided to make his own life a living hell by challenging me to a match at WrestleMania, I figured I'd come out here and get some in-ring experience, some in-ring reps in with people at a similar skill and size level. And this is when he calls out his opponent for the night, Akira Tozawa. He locks Akira Tozawa in the sleeper and he passes out, but Gunther does not break the hold. And when Otis tries to get in and stop him, Ludwig Kaiser intercepts him and blocks Otis from making the save. And the man who fights them off is none other than main event Jey Uso. He runs in with a chair, which sends Gunther and Ludwig out through the crowd. And the segment ends with Jey checking on Otis and Akira Tozawa in the ring. On to the next week of Monday Night Raw. It's the March 31st edition, live from London in the UK. Now in this episode, we're getting matches from both Jey Uso and Gunther. We cut to backstage where Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston confront Jey Uso in the locker room, asking Jey how he really thinks he has a chance in hell at beating Gunther at WrestleMania. Now Woods and Kofi say they know Jey more than anyone else in the locker room due to their history in the tag team division, and they've faced Gunther themselves. He's really no joke. Does Jey really think he can handle himself? And Jey kind of is just like, you're ones to talk. You guys have turned heel and gotten absolutely nothing for it. And this honestly really triggers Xavier Woods. You know, he was the one to go heel before Kofi too. And so he's way more defensive about his lack of accolades to show for the heel turn. So he challenges Jey to a match later in the night. We cut to that match and Jey Uso does defeat Xavier Woods. And then Kofi slides in the ring and they both attack him. At this point, Gunther's music hits. He comes out to the ring and Woods and Kofi back off, kind of giving Gunther a head nod, which it kind of insinuates that they kind of planned this with Gunther to trap Jey in this situation so Gunther could get his hands on him. Not to mention, this is kind of my own personal thing. This also could set up a potential to have the Usos face the heel New Day in the future, maybe even at SummerSlam. And as Gunther is beating on Jey Uso, Sami Zayn's music hits and he comes out, which distracts Gunther long enough for Sami to get on the microphone and say, if you're going to beat on Jey, why don't you pick on somebody else? Why don't you fight me, someone who hasn't had a match tonight, in the main event on Monday Night Raw, live from London? And Gunther accepts, which sets up the main event, Gunther versus Sami Zayn. We're revisiting this epic match one more time, and Gunther wins by making Sami pass out in the sleeper hold. And once again, he doesn't let go. And once again, Jey makes the save. However, the only difference is this time Jey actually does get the upper hand in this brawl. And I'm not just saying when Jey gets the upper hand that he like makes Gunther run away. I mean like when Gunther locks the sleeper in, but Jey is able to grab the arms and pry Gunther's arms off of Jay, which is something that Gunther has never seen before. He's kind of left shocked, and it leaves Jay enough time to super kick him, hit the frog splash, and pose and celebrate with the fans as the show closes to end the European tour. April 7th, we're live from Minneapolis, Minnesota. And remember that segment we had a couple weeks back where Gunther mocked Jey Uso's entrance from the crowd? We're doing it here. And this plays off just like it does in real life. He mocks Jay's entrance to the crowd. He belittles the crowd, saying that they give Jay a false sense of confidence going into WrestleMania and coming out of the Royal Rumble. And at WrestleMania, I'm going to make everyone realize that Jay isn't ready for this. Gunther is the future, and Jay has no part in it. Gunther comes over to the commentary table, Pat McAfee, Michael Cole. He says, you guys, your job is to be impartial and be as analytical as possible as commentators. So with that in mind, do you really think that Jey Uso can beat Gunther? We're going to have both Pat and Michael say that they don't think Jay can beat Gunther. We're continuing to build this doubt of, can Jay beat Gunther? We're really trying to build him up as this underdog, and the time is almost here. We are at the go home episode of Monday Night Raw, live from Sacramento, California on April 14th, 2025. Now, for this week, we get the final face-to-face between Gunther and Jey Uso. It's kind of been the norm for these big matches to have a final face-to-face, a final promo before the actual match itself happens at the PLE. So I figured this would be a good time. This is basically just a big in-ring promo with Gunther and Jay on either side with a wall of security in the middle separating the two. You have Adam Pearce in the middle acting as a moderator, very much repeating what's already been said in the build, you know. However, at one point in this promo, Gunther says, Jay, you are one hell of a tag team wrestler. I've said it before, I'll say it again. You're one of the best tag team wrestlers of all time. But the only difference is at the main event of WrestleMania, your brother is not going to be there for you to tag when you can't take the pain anymore, when you can't take the pressure anymore. That's when I'm going to make my move. That's when I'm going to lock in the sleeper hold, put you to sleep, and retain my World Heavyweight Championship at WrestleMania. And at this point, Jake's completely lost his cool. He starts super kicking security. Him and Gunther are literally fighting this wall of security to get to one another. Adam Pearce is like, I'm getting my ass out. I need a drink. They clear the ring of security. And at this point, they're brawling in the ring. They're just trading punches. They're super kicking. Gunther's chopping. It's all of that. Ludwig climbs up on the ropes and distracts Jay for long enough for Jay to clothesline him out. But as soon as he does, his back is turned and Gunther locks in the sleeper. At this point, Ludwig slides under the ring, grabs a chair, rolls in the ring, and he's in there acting like a guard for Gunther, holding Jay hostage. Security's trying to run in, but they won't go in there and engage Ludwig Kaiser armed with a chair. And so, Raw ends with Jay being attended to outside the ring as he finally lets go of Jey Uso, holds up the World Heavyweight Championship, and Ludwig Kaiser standing behind him with his arms behind his back, as he does in the classic Imperium pose. And that is how the go-home edition of Raw ends.
Hey, Bo, what's up?
I'm literally recording this video right now, booking Gunther versus Jey Uso and how I would book it. I'm just trying to think of a cool way for Jay to enter at WrestleMania. But I was like, maybe we bring Wheezy back.
Oh, God, no.
All right, do you have a better idea? Y'all, we are here. WrestleMania 41, April 19th, 2025, live night one from Las Vegas, Nevada. Let's get into it. Jey Uso comes out from the crowd. He does his typical entrance on steroids. He's coming in through the concourse. There's fans on either side of him as he's walking through the tunnel of fans. And he walks down through the crowd, gets into the ring. It's a massive yeet party. It's like the biggest yeet fest you've ever seen. This is going to rival, if not beat, the entrance in Lyon, France at Backlash. Gunther's going to get this whole video package, and I envision it being similar to the video packages that he had going into the world title match with Damian Priest, where he's walking in through, watching all of these television screens of old school wrestling moments and matches, saying that wrestling is an art. It's way more than just a sport. He is here to prove to everyone that the mat is sacred. Gunther's music hits, he comes out, it's this big spectacle of an entrance. It really does feel like a final boss type of entrance. He gets in the ring, the bell rings. Here we go. Now, obviously, let's be real. Jey Uso is not the greatest in-ring worker. Is he bad? Not at all. But he has a very limited moveset. He's more about the character, and that is perfectly okay. We can have this match be a shorter 15-20 minute match and still accomplish what we need it to. However, I kind of envision this match being almost like a mini Bloodline rules match. Now, let me get into why. So, as Kaiser starts to get involved, you hear Jimmy Uso's music hit, and he runs down the ramp and intercepts Kaiser before he can get to the ring. So this way, there is no outside interference that can taint this match in any way. This starts to kind of plant these seeds of doubt in his mind, but also makes his anger go through the roof, and he he almost lets his anger get the best of him, and he starts getting a little sloppy. Eventually, Jay is able to turn things around, hits a couple of super kicks, Gunther bounces off the ropes, and Jay hits a spear, and then Jey Uso hits that Uso splash, gets the 1-2-3, and the night closes with Jey Uso winning the World Heavyweight Championship in the main event of Night 1 of WrestleMania 41. And the show closes with Jay holding up the World Heavyweight title and Jimmy holding up the US title. And yeah, Night 1 of WrestleMania ends with a fan favorite winning the big title that he's always wanted that's continued to elude him. And yeah, Night 1 of WrestleMania 41 ends with a happy ending, because on Night 2, I really do think heel John Cena is going to beat Cody Rhodes. And that's going to do it for my fantasy booking of how I think WWE should book Jey Uso versus Gunther at WrestleMania 41 for the World Heavyweight Championship. Once again, if you enjoyed this video, we'd really appreciate your support. So hit that subscribe button, comment on what you think about this fantasy booking. Should Jay beat Gunther and win the world title? Let me know in the comments. You can also find us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify if you like long form podcast style content. We are on there, as well as right here on YouTube in video format. And y'all, most importantly, thank you so much for watching this video. I really do appreciate it. My name is Tyler. We are Kick Out Club Wrestling, where we never stay down. We'll see y'all later.